The question of interest for our project was what the effect of response bias from changing the characteristic of the interviewer was when asking which is the better school, St. John's Jesuit or St. Francis de Sales. The characteristic we were changing was the clothes we were in, going from normal clothes to SJJ apparel. Our hypothesis was that there would be a bias towards SJJ when wearing the SJJ apparel. When obtaining our subjects, the methods we used were randomization and systematic sampling. First, we assigned numbers to each of the stores in Westfield Franklin Park Mall. According to their website, they have 175 stores. Then, using our calculator, we randomly selected 40 stores using the simple random sample function. Once this was done, we planned on waiting outside the first 20 stores selected in standard, non-partial clothing and performing a systematic sampling of the first 15 people that walked out of the store, surveying every third person. By then, we would have had 5 responses from each of these 20 stores. We would ask them the question, which school do you think is the better school, SJJ or St. Francis? Then, we would perform a similar procedure at the other 20 stores, but instead would be wearing SJJ apparel, which introduces the response bias while surveying the shoppers. Therefore, our sample size would have been 100 shoppers for both with and without the response bias, introduced at 20 stores each, or 200 shoppers surveyed total at 40 stores total. By doing so, we were able to apply the principle of replication to our project. However, we were soon kicked out by a mall cop because we were apparently soliciting when asking our question. We then went to the CYO fields in the cold, rainy weather to do our project. We asked the same exact question, but had a different model to our project because there was only one gate open and we were limited with how many people we were able to interview. We limited our sample to only the adults that were showing up to the CYO fields. However, we maintained it so that we only asked every third adult who showed up. If an adult refused to answer, we just skipped that and continued on with our pattern. By doing so, we were still able to apply the principle of replication to our sample.
St. John's or St. Francis?
Oh, St. Francis, definitely.
In your opinion, which of the two schools is better, St. John's or St. Francis?
I'll definitely have to say St. John.
Thank you for your time.
So, which do you think is the better high school, St. John's or St. Francis?
St. John's.
Which school do you think is the better school, St. John's or St. Francis?
St. John's, meant for others. Thank you.
In the tables and graphs shown, there is indeed a moderate impact on the data when the response bias via the interviewer is introduced. Looking at the table, without SJJ apparel, only 14 people responded with St. John's as their choice, whereas while wearing apparel, 19 people responded with St. John's as their choice. Looking at the table calculated with a relative frequency, we can see that 46.67% selected St. John's without apparel and 63.33% selected St. John's with apparel. However, given our relatively small sample size, the association between response bias is weak, which is also possibly due to some confounding variables, including the possibility of a St. Francis bias in the 1 p.m. game which had Christ the King, and the possibility of bias in the 2:30 game which featured the St. John's Jesuit Academy. This was an unforeseen issue and introduced another bias. However, our systematic sampling limited this bias because other teams, such as St. Joan of Arc, were also playing that are not biased, so the confounding variable was as limited as possible given the circumstances of our last-minute change. The last unforeseen issue was the non-response we received from some people because they had no affiliation or did not want to answer us in the rain. We handled this by skipping that sample and continuing on with the systematic sample by continuing with every third as if they had actually answered.
Okay, so I'm here at the Franklin Park Mall. In case I haven't explained it already, basically they had us stop surveying because we were apparently soliciting people. So yeah, I guess you could say we're pretty salty about that. So I came here today to, I guess, interview people what they really think about the Franklin Park Mall. All right, so I think I'm going to ask this handsome gentleman right here. Sir, if I could just take a second of your time, what do you think of Franklin Park? Oh man, Franklin Park, dude, this place sucks, man. Like, Wi-Fi is awful, movies are bad, food sucks. I mean, I hate this place, honestly. Well, there you have it, guys. 100% of mall goers hate Franklin Park. I think this is an eye-opening statistic, legitimately. So, I would not recommend coming here ever again.